Goose beats and vinyl cracks. Feel the drop, it takes you back. Heartbeats sync with dusty tracks. A sound attack, no plan, no map.
Ooh, man, what is up? Everybody, long time no talk, right? It is your boy BQ checking in here at the channel. It's been a minute since I've uploaded anything, since I've talked to you guys, since I've given you any kind of updates. And in case you were unaware, I did take a break from the channel, from watching TNA period, just due to some personal things going on in my life. And everyone is okay, family is okay. You know, people of course try to figure out what was wrong. It was more so my mind was really elsewhere, trying to focus on something that I had no control over, and it was really occupying my thoughts. And it just I had no desire to watch wrestling, or because I mean, let's be honest, I'm more critical of the show that I am praiseworthy of it. So for that reason, I just was not going to sit down and watch something that does not necessarily make me happy when I've just got other stuff going on. It just wrestling just seems so, I don't even so want to say secondary. It's just I just did not care. All right. So I'm gonna get into a little bit about the future of the channel, about am I coming back? Am I gonna be reviewing the show? But I do want to talk a little bit about just what's going on with the company right now. Admittingly, I have watched a handful of clips on YouTube, and I do mean a handful. I've watched a couple matches on YouTube when they upload full matches. And of course, there's been, friends that I talk to. There's the Impact Lounge engagement group on Facebook where they're talking about the show. And, so I'm not completely in the dark, but I'm a little bit in the dark. Creatively, I don't know where they're going with things right now. I did not watch the last couple Impact Plus shows. I haven't watched the episode, and I think we're going on 2 months now. All right, so there's a little bit that I still need to learn. And when I decided to take the break, I also was, how can I word it? I was starting to become weary of this TNA and NXT partnership. Not from a business standpoint. I want to make that very, very clear. It's doing good business for them. By no means do I think they should like pull the plug and let's just go back to, the same people every single week. Like it's not what I'm getting at. I think the partnership has been a lovely thing. But in the beginning, we were kind of getting the NXT stars that no one really knew, and some that could use some exposure somewhere else and wrestling somewhere else. It was like little by little. It kind of started with the Jordan Grace Open Challenge. And then it started to feel like they were doing too much too fast. And I feel like the fans now are accustomed to every single time there's a quote unquote premium live event at Impact Plus show, or TNA Plus show. I'm sorry. I think I will call it Impact Plus the day I die. Every time there's one of these shows, I think the fans are predetermined to believe that there's going to be a surprise, and there's going to be a surprise from NXT. And when I saw that Trick Williams attacked Joe Hendry, I was like, is this how we're going to go off the air for every big event now? Is like who from NXT is going to jump Joe Hendry, So I started to become weary of it because I thought they were sacrificing creative at the expense of surprises and the expense of new faces. And then it gets to a point where there's a surprise for the sake of a surprise. And you understand what I'm saying? My biggest concern is that history repeats itself, that they continue. I shouldn't say continue a trend, but revisit old habits. What do I mean by that? Is when TNA came on the scene years and years ago, what are we at? Like, I don't even know how many years at this point. It was fresh. It was different. AEW is going through this too. It was fresh. It was different. It was a different take on wrestling. It was unapologetic, you know? And then over time, they felt the need to compete with with WWE, and it was like, who could we bring in that's a recognizable name? And you start to bring in so many recognizable names that you start forgetting about the people that you have on the roster. And you see a guy like Ace Austin, where he's gone now, and every time you bring in an Elijah, you're knocking Ace Austin down a peg. You're knocking Steve Macklin down a peg. Thank God he has a mid card championship now, so he's safe. But you're knocking Trey Miguel down. You're knocking uh, Zachary Wentz down, and that's why my nickname for Ace Austin was King of the Mid Card. And I had been saying it probably the last month before I took my break. Every time there was an Ace Austin match or a tag match, I said, and now he will go right back to the same exact spot on the card that he was before, because there's just been a lack of, not a complete lack. Obviously Joe Hendry's in a main event and some of these other dudes, but it's not a complete lack. But the fans would like to see more of the TNA rostered guys with long tenures, or the homegrown guys, like, get to that main event scene. Someone brought up Trey Miguel the other day. And I said, yo, that ship has sailed, man. That ship has long sailed. And I'm a fan of his. I don't like the Rascal style of like tag team wrestling necessarily, but I like Trey Miguel a lot. I like his singles matches. I think he had a couple good X Division title runs. I think he held it twice, right? A babyface and once as a heel. But I know he is really entertaining as a heel. Did a good program with Wesley and Zach Wentz. All of them involved. But that ship has sailed. Like, they have kept that dude in the tag team division so long that where there was opportunity for him to break out. I think that's come and gone. I think it came and went for Ace Austin as well. I think it unfortunately kind of came and went for Chris Bay. Now, if Chris Bay ever wrestles again, we're having a different conversation, because I highly doubt they would just bring him in and, hey, here's wrestle on Explosion, but we don't know his status. But I think we just see that a lot. Kiera Hogan, once upon a time when she left the company, she had done an interview where she's like, well, I didn't want to leave. It was just that I was just there for a while and there was no path for me to be the Knockouts champion. Like, they told me I was not going to win the title. And she was there for years, and I don't think she ever had a Knockouts title program. She might have had like one throwaway match somewhere, some BS Twitch match, but she never had any, you know, there was nothing for her. When you bring in Trinity, like once upon a time they brought her in, recognizable name, runs through the entire division to the point that when Jordan Grace finally beats her, Jordan Grace has no one to work with. Now, fortunately, Masha Slamovich was a rare case of someone that who was, you kind of having a lower card for a bit, but you can heat them up fairly quickly. So they were lucky in that regard. But I'm just worried that there's history will repeat itself. That it's as time passes, it's going to be like, how many more NXT names can we get on here? How many WWE names? Are we ever going to see like the SmackDown Raw people at all? And there's just never been. We've had a lot of different owners, different people running things, but the mentality has always been the same. That has kind of been one of my issues. I shouldn't say my issue. I have so many issues. It's always been one of my issues. The mentality has been the same, and we're seeing it right now. Elijah had a world title shot. We knew from the day this dude debuted that he was going to have a world title shot at some point. And I'm not totally against bringing in someone from WWE and seeing what they can do. Like Indy Hartwell, I have no problem with that because she wasn't at the top of the card. Neither was Elijah, but she wasn't at the top of the card. So now they're bringing her in a different role. Let's see what we can get out of her rather than, oh, she was WWE. She's got to get her Knockouts title match within 60 days of signing. I think it's a little easier to bring in recognizable names into knockouts division. But when you bring them into the male side, you just keep knocking guys down and down and down. And I feel like we're a couple months away from a main event match being Trick Williams versus someone from NXT, but on a TNA show. You know what I mean? So that is just my worry that once upon a time TNA was hot, it got big, it got the viewers, and then they became too hungry, too greedy for more, and got away from what made TNA TNA. So that's the main thing I'm getting at when I say repeating history is that when you get away from showing people what TNA is all about. You know, Joe Hendry showed up on WWE a couple times. He's the Royal Rumble, WrestleMania. He came off like a jobber both times. And yes, is it good for brand recognition? Like people know, okay, the TNA champion, cool. We know there's a company called TNA. Tremendous for brand recognition. But can you honestly say in either of those, they were showing people what TNA can do, what TNA is made of? You know, um, the problem is that your world champion is at the time was such a mark that he was happier with being involved in a WWE WrestleMania match and working with Randy Orton than he was. How did this make TNA look? And I'm sure the TNA people very happy with it. You know what I'm saying? I'm speaking from a fan standpoint. I'm speaking from the standpoint of someone who's like, I want to tune in to check TNA. With the exception of Moose on NXT that one time against Obamacare and Jordan Grace, her multiple appearances, like those were the only two people that really like, hey, this is what do they got going on there over at TNA? You know, maybe the Rascal stuff a little bit, but you know, um, I can't say that the Rosemary Wendy Chu stuff was very helpful. But those were, you know, there's just very few and far in between instances where they're like, hey, let's make TNA shine. Now, when NXT wrestlers appear on TNA, for the most part, TNA beats them, right? That's great. That's very far beyond from what the AEW partnership was. Very far. Okay. That and I'm here to tell you right now, no one from AEW wanted to come to Impact. None of them. All right. I don't care what name you can think of. Oh, wait, who showed up? Maybe Matt Hardy. That's it. You know, the NXT people are happy to come work Impact tapings. And, you know, for the most part, TNA is very strong. But we don't need them to be strong on Impact programming. We need them to look strong on NXT and WWE programming. You know, when Rebellion or whatever sold out, you know, people are like, oh, it's because Joe Hendry was at WrestleMania. I'm like, Joe Hendry didn't do anything at WrestleMania to make people want to watch TNA. They maybe were more aware of TNA, but he didn't do anything to make people, hey, let me order the pay-per-view, let me buy a ticket, let me spend my money. That I'm very confident in saying that. So I do have some worries, some concern that they're just doing too much. You know, they're bringing too many people because you can drag this partnership out so long if you're just bringing in 1-2 people at a time. But like the knockouts, you know, they brought in 2 tag teams, and then all of a sudden, what's Big Booty's name? I cannot. Oh man, the blonde girl. You know, she showed up. That was kind of a throwaway. You know, that could have been a bigger deal than it was. You know, so yeah, I've got some concerns. And what concerns me too is that some people who really like the show are saying it's not good right now, and that's not a good sign. And the reason I think they say that is because they're potentially getting too far away from what makes TNA TNA. You know what I mean? So, by no means do I think they have to pull the plug on it. I think they're doing too much too quickly. I really do. You know, one of their guys is our world champion, and the thing is, I don't like NXT, and I don't have to. You know, I'm not required to like it to be okay with the partnership. I've watched it a few times. I watched one episode when it went to like NXT 2.0, and I actually really liked it. I think because it was just so different. And then I watched the next couple of episodes and started realizing how bad the acting was. The commentary's bad. Play-by-play guy is not bad. Everyone's bad at commentary. If you don't know BQ by now, there's no good play-by-plays except Ian Riccaboni. or that's the only person I can listen to. I used to be able to listen to Excalibur, but everyone else, ugh. But personally, I didn't have any interest in Trick Williams watching NXT. I mean, there's probably a lot of you that love him. Like he just didn't do it for me necessarily. Uh, some of the guys in NXT, I'm not like real big on many of those guys because I've seen some clips here or there. I always have interest. I always watch clips. I don't see a lot on the male side. I'm like real interested in, but so maybe I wouldn't like anyone who came over. I don't know. But hopefully we get back on track. Slammiversary is coming up. Slammiversary is not a let's have NXT take over our show type of thing. Like Slammiversary is to the fans the biggest show of the year, not to the company, but to the fans. It's typically the biggest show of the year, and it's probably going to be again with not watching anything. It's probably going to be a three-way with Santana and Joe Hendry and Trick Williams. That's what I would imagine is happening. I don't know, but I just don't want them to bring in so many NXT people that it's an easy way out from having to write creative for your company. Frankie Kazarian had that Call Your Shot Gauntlet trophy for the longest time, and I remember saying, "Man, I really wonder what they're going to do with this," because it was one of those things like we couldn't predict, and TNA is very predictable, but wrestling is predictable, but we could not predict how was he going to cash this thing in. And the reason we couldn't predict it is because there was clearly no plan for him, no plan for the cash in. It was a horrible, horrible cash in where he tried to say, "Well, he's hurt, so I'm gonna cash in and wrestle him a month from now." And then he goes on WWE TV, wrestles not hurt, and a few days before that, wrestles here in Vegas. He's got the tape on, but he's no selling the injury the entire match, and beats Frankie Kazarian. So we're supposed to believe Frankie had a shot at beating this dude at Rebellion or whatever it was. So I kind of outside looking in because I don't totally know. I feel like there's some kind of bad creative going on, but I'm not too concerned, but I'm a little bit concerned. Regarding the future of this channel, reviewing the show, I put out a tweet a couple days ago and I said, and this was prior to Against All Odds, which don't let Hannafin fool you. VetTix, because I'm close enough to Arizona, VetTix was trying to hand out free tickets the day of the event. So, the crowd was large. It was engaged. It was great. I'm aware of all that, but don't let Hannafin. It's a sellout. Don't let Hannafin fool you. Anyway, I tweeted out previous to that event, if Robert Stone beats Santino, I will not watch or review the show until he's off TV. So people are like, "What? I thought you wanted Santino gone." My issue with Robert Stone's a personal one. He probably doesn't remember or give a shit. I'm positive he doesn't, but I do. We were podcasting partners for a short amount of time. And within 3 to 4 weeks, I went from really enjoying podcasting to hating it. We would do our show, and he was very nice at first. Like I paid him a little to be on the show. It wasn't a lot of money. It was just, he just said, "I just want to be compensated for my time," and that was fine. I really didn't care about that. So we had a good, relationship up front, but then we would podcast and he would send me a text afterwards, talking down to me, making me feel like I'm the shittiest podcaster in the world. Which I'm okay with constructive criticism, you know what I'm saying? But like when you're talking down to someone and as a man, I'm not okay with that. It made the podcasting experience very unenjoyable. And so it was me and two other guys. I had two other partners, Kyle and Will, who I haven't spoken to either of them in a very long time. It was kind of a 2/3 vote because we're like, after doing a few pods, we're like, this is not fun. And it was a two. It was a, I say it was a 2/3 vote because myself and Will both said we're done, and then Kyle wanted to keep him on. But because majority rules, I ended up texting him. Um, because I had his phone number. I texted him, and I was very nervous about it. But I tried to in a very professional way be like, we do not want to continue. This is, I think I had said something like, this is not fun for us anymore. Um, and I don't remember exactly if I told him, hey, you've been critical of us. I don't recall because this was so long ago. Okay. And maybe I'm holding on to a grudge way too long, but um, he just responded and said, okay. Like he didn't argue with me or anything. He was like, he's a dick, but he was not a dick. Like he didn't argue with me and call me names and nothing like that, or, try to trash me. It wasn't like that, but he's a dick in the sense of the way he would kind of talk down to me after the podcast and tell me basically what a horrible podcaster I am. And these were early in my podcaster days, and I've never claimed to be a good podcaster. I'm one of the worst. Like Denise Salcedo, the worst, and then I'm like the next. You know what I'm saying? So, um, like I don't know. I think because he didn't like apologize and didn't, hey, this or didn't say, okay, I'll back off. Let's continue. You know what I mean? Like he's like, okay, I think he just said no problem. I think that's what it was with an exclamation mark. So it came off like he was being nice. And then he texted Kyle after and said, hey, I don't, it's not a good look for me to kind of be removed from someone's podcast so early. He's like, maybe you and I can have our own thing and go forward, which Kyle agreed to, but they didn't. I don't believe they ultimately did it. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to say that, hey, when he responded to me, he was, relatively kind, because I don't want to say stuff that didn't happen or paint him in a light that's incorrect. But it was just kind of an ugly situation for me because taking something that I really loved at the time and just in such a short amount of time making me hate it, like that's not good for me mentally, you know. So I just had to make a decision, and we moved on, and then he unfollowed me from Twitter the next day, and I don't know. I just feel like there probably could have been kind of an adult conversation where like, hey, how can we move forward? And it just, that didn't happen. But maybe that's something minor to you guys. But to me, um, it's not, because when I feel disrespected by someone, I have a hard time letting that go. Just as a man, I do. Um, that's the one kind of grudge that I hold against people, is if they disrespect me or my family and don't apologize for it. So, long story short, I'm not a fan. If he is on TNA television, I won't watch it. And I know Santino won the match, but even though I don't follow him, the tweet still came across my feed. Something like, I'll be back, or I'm not going away, or something. Okay. I'm telling you guys right now, if he returns, I won't watch the show. You don't have to agree with that. I don't care if you don't agree with it. I just won't. Okay. But if he's gone and all that, I'm pretty close to getting ready to rock with you guys again. I have to make sure. I don't want to like review this upcoming show, and then he comes back, or he comes back the next week. I got to be pretty clear that he's not returning. And then I'll get back to watching the shows. I'm going to continue to watch him on mute, because I try to watch some matches on YouTube. And I mean, the minute I heard fucking Hannafin and Ray Wall's voice, I just cringed, and it was everything in one match. I had a kick out 90 times, and fake reacting to things, and like it was everything that bothers me about him. Like I just got it all in one match, and I'm just like, dude, I can't. And a lot of you guys like the commentary. That's fine. I'm not telling you not to. But if you want me to review the show, you're gonna have to live with the fact that it's gonna be on mute, which is kind of a weird way to watch it. But it's the only way I can and somewhat enjoy it. But I'm really interested to see what they're going to do with the knockouts. They're bringing in a lot of people, and the last thing I want to say to you guys, when I went to the show in Vegas, whatever it was that someone at TNA got me into, I'm at will call. I get my tickets. I turn around. I see someone else from TNA, and just so I don't paint an incorrect picture, he was not being a dick or anything like that, but kind of confronted me and said that I'm putting out a lot of wrong information out there to the fans. And he approached me in professional manner. Again, I don't want to. He didn't do anything wrong. I want to make that very very clear. And I've always had pride in giving you guys good information. And there's always people are gonna say BQ's full of shit. BQ ain't really talking to nobody. He's a wannabe insider. To be clear, I don't care. I really don't. Like what goes on behind the scenes in wrestling, I really don't care. I'm content with watching the show week to week. I've said that a lot for you guys who've like followed me. Like I have said that many, many times. So it actually like just shocks me when someone acts like I want to be this insider journalist. Fucking, I want to work for TNA, which I've never fucking said. All right. I'm content with watching the show. Am I a little curious sometimes? Like, okay, is this guy gone? Is this girl gone? Yeah, of course. I'm not like 100% watching as a fan. Of course, there's some things I want to know, but a lot of the drama that goes on behind the scenes, I don't care. I look into it for you guys. Either enough people come to me and say, "Hey, can you find out what's going on with this?" Or sometimes they come to me like, "Hey, put this information out." All right, but I've pride myself in giving you guys pretty solid information, and I don't feel that what I put out there is wrong. Maybe I misconstrue something, and it's a game of telephone, and the way I deliver it isn't totally accurate. That's very possible because that can happen to anybody. Firsthand information travels to second, to third, whatever. The more, what I'm saying, like uh, the more hands it travels through, the more incorrect maybe the information can be. But I do not put out bad info. I don't do it purposely. And the thing I'll say to people who say I'm putting out wrong info, well, what's the truth? If I'm not putting out the truth, what's the truth? I got on here, I did many podcasts about Scott Demore. And when the wrestling world who didn't even watch TNA were like up in arms about this, I was like, look, the company wasn't growing under Scott. Production was bad under Scott. Wrestlers were being overpaid under Scott. Scott wanted to be on TV. Um, there was a lot of things I listed off. And this is, we're talking about a year and a half ago, right? That this has been when the Scott was gone, not this year, right? Maybe it was. I don't even know. I don't care. I think it was last year though. But I think you see as time has progressed, time has passed, like the things I say sound pretty accurate, right? When you see the PCOs, the Rhinos, they're gone. The Motor City Machine Guns, which I told you guys, they were promised Good Brothers money by Scott. Scott's gone. Motor City Machine Guns are gone. There's a couple of people who did leave, but for the most part, the contracts that weren't renewed are the people that you can look at. You can watch the show and be like, hey, these are Scott people. These are Scott guys. Josh Alexander had said, well, they didn't make me an offer. Well, Josh Alexander was obviously looking for a pay raise, and he most likely was on a Scott Demore contract to begin with. So that's probably why TNA didn't make him an offer. They're like, well, we're not going to pay him more. So what's the point in the conversation? We'll let the contract run out, you know? But you can see that the Scott guys and girls are gone. And there's been talk about people being overpaid and stuff. So, for someone who says, well, I'm wrong, well, what is the truth? Because every time I've put out any information, someone's like, that's not correct. Nobody has come out and given the other quote unquote side of the story. No one has ever said, well, that's not true. This is what happened. Not one motherfucker has been like, this is why Scott D'Amore was fired, but me. You understand what I'm saying? So I'll never do you guys wrong. It's never my intention to give you bad information. I won't do that. I'm sorry that I've left you guys. I'm sorry a lot of you guys have been left without a TNA podcast for a while. I was on break. Mike was on break. I don't even know who else is out there. The TNI guys, Total Nonstop Impact, they do a good job. Um, I think Fightful has a show. I don't know if it's any good or not. I think they do have one. The host is named Jim something. I don't know. Like, I don't know how many are out there, and I don't know if it's, I hopefully you guys have enjoyed whatever ones are out there, because I know there's a lot of people who come to myself and Mike and enjoy what we do, and it's unfortunate that we kind of both took our hiatus at the same time. But I am looking to being back soon. It's just going to depend on this Robert Stone thing. And again, like I said, you guys might think I'm holding a grudge that's a decade long, and I should just get over it. Like, I don't like the dude. Let's put it like that. I don't like him, and I'm just not going to watch the show. And if you keep on the show, like, good job, TNA. You just got your most loyal podcaster to stop watching. But hopefully they just move on. I do believe that they will move on from Santino at some point, but I don't think it's going to be anytime soon, because as I said to you guys before, he's a recognizable face to the WWE audience, and they have fonder memories than our current perception of him is. The people who are watching TNA week in and week out aren't real fond of the Santino character, but the people who are like lapsed or are watching for the first time, but they remember Santino, they think it's great. That's why he gets these big pops when he comes out. And, I think they are going to move away from him. I just think we're stuck with him for now. And that whole storyline sounded very bad to me. And I would have loved to watch Ariana Grace versus Tessa Blanchard, but I wasn't, because Stone was involved. And I mean, they brought in Victoria Crawford. Like, give me a break. Like, she is not good. She was never good. She was always one of those people that I would see on Twitter. Oh, they should bring Alicia Fox. I'm like, oh my God, please don't. If you can watch one of those like videos on YouTube it'll have there's these marks who will make videos of showing someone hit their finisher like 20 times in a row to music. Alicia Fox did not hit that scissor kick twice the same time. Excuse me. She did not hit that scissor kick the same way twice in her entire career. I mean, that was one of the most reckless moves that I've seen anybody do. So I had no interest in that program, but they're starting to reshape the knockouts a little bit. I'm excited about that. I told you guys they're going to re-envision the way the knockouts division was being presented. Again, if I'm giving you bad info, like, where's the correct info? Who's stepping forward and saying no? They're going to continue to handle the knockouts the same way they always were. Like I said, they wanted a different vision. You know what I'm saying? So gave you guys a nice little long podcast today because I haven't spoken to you in so long. Again, I'm not exactly sure when I'm going to get back to watching the show. I got to make sure Stone is off. But aside from that, I'm going to try to do a couple podcasts, one reviewing the Knockouts roster and one reviewing the men's roster. Just seeing what the state of the divisions are, I haven't got a chance to see Macklin with his new title at all. So I'm looking forward to that. I did watch Harley Hudson and Maya Grace. What did I watch? I think I watched the 6-man pre-show match with Zaya Brookside and the Elegance brand. They look very good. And by Elegance looks very good. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. But we're almost there, folks. We're not quite there, but almost there, almost back. But hopefully I'll talk to you soon. I'm out. Peace.